The personality of the brilliant French military leader, Napoleon Bonaparte, has always been surrounded by numerous mysteries and legends. As one of the most prominent figures in world history, he continues to spark interest and debate to this day. From history, we all know that Napoleon was considered quite short. Some sources state that he was 157 centimeters tall, but in reality, his height was about 170 centimeters, which, let's be honest, is not that short at all. This discrepancy is explained by the peculiarities of his physique. His disproportionately large head made his body appear smaller. Napoleon was very self-conscious about this and was highly dependent on the opinions of others. It is no coincidence that the term Napoleon complex exists, referring to short individuals who try to assert themselves by dominating others. Even in school, after being mocked by his classmates, Napoleon made a firm decision. He would become a conqueror and prove to everyone that he was not just equal to others, he was far superior. Once the emperor jokingly said that he did not know how to handle women, and that was why Russia, which had resisted him, was also of the feminine gender in French, la Russie. But he also failed to tame Josephine, his one true love, the name he whispered with his last breath. Although he was forced to divorce her due to her inability to bear children, no woman in his life ever matched her. Josephine was not a fatal beauty, yet men lost their minds over her deep, sultry voice, mesmerizing eyes with incredibly long lashes, and unforgettable presence. Napoleon himself was no exception. Once he fell for her, he remained enchanted forever. Josephine's troubled past. Before Napoleon, Josephine had endured many hardships: a failed marriage to a cruel tyrant, severe financial struggles, and even imprisonment. She longed to escape her desperate poverty and saw marriage as the only solution. That's why she eagerly accepted the emperor's proposal, especially since he immediately paid off her enormous debts, allowing her to stop worrying about money. At the time of their wedding, Napoleon was not particularly wealthy, but Josephine sensed his great potential and strength, and with them, a brilliant future. Josephine had children from her previous marriage, whom her new husband generously supported. Before their marriage, she had concealed her financial troubles, posing as a wealthy socialite widow, something Napoleon truly believed. To him, she was the epitome of beauty and femininity, and her rather scandalous past and liberal behavior did not concern him. However, their marriage was far from peaceful. The Empress tormented Napoleon with wild jealousy and constant scandals, which soon became the talk of all France. She tried to be an ideal wife for him, but he increasingly betrayed her, even though he truly loved only her. Josephine was deeply troubled by their inability to have children together. Since she already had 2 children, she suspected that the problem lay with Napoleon himself. Meanwhile, his relatives urged him to get rid of her as soon as possible. A scandalous affair. Soon, Josephine noticed her husband's lingering glances toward her daughter, Hortense. Her suspicions were confirmed. Hortense had become Napoleon's mistress and soon revealed to her mother that she was pregnant. Although Hortense was not Napoleon's biological daughter, betraying his wife with her own child was undeniably disgraceful. Josephine faced an agonizing decision: either arrange a marriage between her daughter and Napoleon, or, if he refused, allow Hortense to marry Napoleon's younger brother. Napoleon's younger brother, Louis Bonaparte, was sickly, unattractive, and aggressive, but there was no other option. Marrying his stepdaughter and officially recognizing the child was out of the question. France would never forgive such recklessness. Hortense married Louis, but their marriage was short-lived. The child later died of illness, and the issue of Napoleon's heir remained unresolved. The downfall of a marriage. As Empress, Josephine was never at peace. She constantly spied on her husband and once caught him in bed with a young mistress. Napoleon, on the other hand, was ready to cast aside his barren wife, just as he had discarded everyone who no longer served his ambitions. His aging wife no longer interested him. He was drawn to youthful blood, someone who could give him a long-awaited heir. Eventually, he had a child with the Polish beauty, Maria Walewska, but she was considered unsuitable due to her lower status. Finally, Napoleon made the decision to divorce Josephine. She officially renounced her throne, but the divorce brought neither of them happiness. Josephine died soon after, while Napoleon's life was plagued by misfortunes because he had betrayed the only woman he ever truly loved. The mysterious death of Napoleon Bonaparte. Historians and researchers still debate whether Napoleon's death was natural or if he was helped along the way. Most historians lean toward the theory that the legendary emperor was poisoned. This is supported by the analysis of his hair, which contained traces of arsenic in small amounts. The prime suspect? General Charles Montholon, a greedy and envious man, tormented by jealousy over his wife, Albina, whom he himself had encouraged to grow close to the emperor. Montholon devised a cunning plan: poison Napoleon and inherit his entire fortune, as he was designated as the main beneficiary in the emperor's will. To avoid suspicion, the general acted cautiously but persistently, adding small doses of arsenic to Napoleon's food every day. In the end, Napoleon died from severe poisoning, a lethal combination of arsenic and mercuric chloride, which had been prescribed to him as a laxative by his doctors. However, the classic love triangle quickly collapsed. After Napoleon's death, Albina refused to reunite with Montholon, despite the terrible crime he had committed for her sake. Nonetheless, the cunning general achieved his goal. He inherited Napoleon's vast fortune, taking possession of 2 million gold francs. Napoleon Bonaparte's final words were, "The army, France, Josephine." These three things had defined his entire life, and for them, he had been willing to do anything.